Hello, welcome to this video on Houdini rendering. Today we're going to be discussing several topics. We're going to start with ROPs, which are render operators. Those are the output nodes that define what we render and how we render, what render engine we use, and a whole bunch of other information. We're going to talk about bundles, which is a form of group. You can have groups of lights or objects or whatever and assign them to different ROPs in different ways. We're going to talk about takes, which are like render layers. Kind of like render layers on steroids, actually, because you can do a lot more than create render layers with them. And we're going to talk about render dependencies, which has to do with how we link together ROPs to render certain things before other things. For example, if you required photon maps to be generated before a final render, you could link two ROPs together, and the first one would create the photon map, and the second one would use it. So without further ado, let's get going. What a child take does is it inherits all the values from the take above it. So I could make a bunch of changes to this take and then give it a child, and the new child would inherit all of those from take 1 plus all of those from the main take. It's a good way of quickly setting up groups of render passes. I'm going to call this one ground. I'm going to select all of the aircraft nodes once again. Turn on our auto takes. And we need to turn on phantom for all of these items. That means that the item itself will not render, but it will still ray trace. And let's see what that looks like. So there we go. We have our shadows cast. You can actually see the sky shadow here and the sunlight shadow here as well. Okay, let's just take a quick look at the render passes that come out. So here's our color render, our ground with the shadow render, our ground by itself, and our reflection pass. And those passes can be used a number of different ways in comp. Typically, if you're doing a shadow, you would do just a shadow on a white, purely white plane, or you'd export it as a shadow buffer, a separate pass that comes straight out of the initial render rather than separating it into multiple renders. So creating takes and running multiple ROPs is one way to get render passes out of your scene so that they can be composited. But there's another way as well, and that's by using something called image planes, and you can assign multiple image planes into a single ROP. A lot of quality settings inside their render operators, such as pixel samples and min and max rays and things like that. So we could actually stack all those into here and compare them against each other, because if we're doing a bunch of render passes, in general, we want to make sure their qualities are all the same so that they'll line up properly in compositing. Okay, there is yet another way other than takes to sort out different items into different ROPs. You don't actually need to use takes for everything. And this is called bundles. And all a bundle is a group of items. It could be a group of geometry or a group of lights or whatever. In this case, I'm going to show it to you using lights to begin with. So what I've done is I've put 9 lights into our little biplane scene here. Just 3 of each color, red, green, and blue, just for demonstration purposes. And I'm going to create 3 ROPs, and we're going to assign the lights to them by bundles. So the first thing we need to do is group our lights together by their color codes. So 1 of each color is now being used. So this is what they mean when they're talking about candidate lights. If you wanted it to be a solo light instead, that gives you just a single light. So if you have tons of lights, this is actually a good diagnostic tool. So you have tons of lights in your scene and you want to see what just one light is doing, simply type that light or select it from a list into the solo light, and you'll get to see just what it's doing alone in the scene. It's very useful for diagnosis of your lighting. You can also exclude a light. So that about ties it up for this introduction to rendering. In this video we've taken a brief overview at ROPS. We've looked at how to use takes in your renders and render dependencies, how to use image planes, how to use the parameter spreadsheet, and how to use the very useful feature bundles. I hope this has been useful to you. If there are any areas you think that are missing that could use clarification, please do feel free to contact us at contact@cgmasters.com, and we'll improve things. Thanks so much for all the people who've given their support and feedback so far. We think this is a great way to continually develop and improve our work. And we'll see you in the next video.